What if I told you that most of the pills sitting in your medicine cabinet right now have a direct botanical ancestor, something that grew in the ground long before a lab ever touched it? We've spent decades handing that knowledge over to pharmaceutical companies, and most of us don't even realize what we gave up. Today, we're walking through 20 plants that cover a serious range of what your body actually needs, from your gut lining to your circulatory system to your skin, and I'm going to show you exactly why each one works at the compound level. Number 1, aloe vera. Let's start with aloe vera aloe Miller, because it's probably already sitting in your house and you're almost certainly underusing it. That clear gel inside the leaf isn't just soothing goo. It contains asamanin, a long-chain polysaccharide that accelerates skin cell repair and modulates immune response right at the wound site. The plant also produces gibberellins, which are growth hormones that push collagen synthesis in damaged tissue. Clinical studies on burn patients show measurable reductions in healing time compared to standard petroleum-based dressings. Now, the outer leaf is a different story. It contains anthraquinones, which are laxative compounds you don't want anywhere near broken skin, and most commercial aloe gels blend both layers together, which is exactly why they underperform. Split a fresh leaf yourself and you skip that problem entirely. Aloe Miller needs almost no water, thrives in a container on your counter, and costs about $4 at any hardware store. Number 2, basil. Ocimum basilicum gets filed under Italian food in most people's minds, and that's where the pharmacological story gets completely buried. The essential oil in fresh basil leaves carries eugenol and linalool, two compounds with documented antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory activity in the gut. Eugenol is the same compound dentists pack into temporary fillings because it kills bacteria and numbs tissue. Basil has it in real concentrations, so when you're chewing fresh leaves, you're running a mild antimicrobial rinse through your mouth and upper digestive tract without even thinking about it. Past the mouth, those volatile oils reach the gut lining and inhibit several bacterial strains, including ones responsible for food poisoning. Linalool also works on the nervous system as a mild anxiety reducer, which is why a basil-heavy meal feels calming beyond just being full. Keep one plant in a warm kitchen window, harvest from the top regularly, and don't let it flower too early. That's when eugenol concentration peaks. Number 3. Chamomile? Matricaria recutita gets labeled as a gentle bedtime tea, and while that's not wrong, it misses most of what's actually happening in the cup. The compound worth understanding is azulene, a deep blue molecule with anti-inflammatory activity that works through a different pathway than most over-the-counter options. Here's what most people don't know. Azulene doesn't exist in the fresh flower. It forms when heat converts a precursor compound called matricine, so a cold infusion won't get you there. A proper hot steep will. Beyond azulene, chamomile contains apigenin, a flavonoid that binds to the same brain receptors as benzodiazepines, just without the dependency risk. Clinical studies tracking sleep in adults who took chamomile extract showed real improvement in both sleep onset and duration compared to placebo. That's a documented mechanism, not a warm drink effect. Matricaria recutita reseeds aggressively, tolerates poor soil, and once it's established, it basically maintains itself. Harvest the flowers when the petals start curling backward, that's peak compound concentration, and dry them fast at low heat to keep the apigenin intact. Number 4. Peppermint. Mentha X piperita is one of the most studied plants in gastroenterology, and not because researchers were curious about tea. Menthol, its primary compound, has a specific, well-documented effect on the smooth muscle of the gastrointestinal tract. It relaxes it. That's backed by multiple randomized controlled trials. Enteric-coated peppermint oil capsules get prescribed in clinical settings for irritable bowel syndrome because menthol needs to reach the lower intestine before being absorbed. That pharmaceutical product is essentially just a delivery system for what's already growing in your garden, engineered to survive stomach acid. Menthol also activates cold-sensitive receptors in skin and mucous membranes, triggering peripheral vasodilation and perceived cooling without actually dropping your core temperature, which makes it useful for fever discomfort while your body does its work. Plant it once in a contained pot because those rhizomes spread hard. Harvest before flowering, and you've got a consistent therapeutic source without a prescription. Number 5. Lavender. Lavandula angustifolia ended up in every bath product on the market for a reason, and it wasn't because it smells nice. The primary compounds, linalool and linaloyl acetate, work through your olfactory system to directly influence the limbic brain, the part that handles fear, stress, and emotional memory. You don't have to swallow it for it to work. Inhaling linalool vapor reduces cortisol and lowers heart rate under acute stress because the volatile molecules bind to olfactory receptors and signal the amygdala directly, skipping digestion entirely. Applied to skin, linalool and linaloyl acetate cross the skin barrier and reach circulation in about 20 minutes, which is why lavender oil works on muscle tension through absorption, not just scent. It also carries documented antimicrobial activity, so it earns a place in wound salves too. Grow it in full sun, well-drained alkaline soil, and don't overwater it. Harvest the spikes before the buds open for the highest linalool concentration. Number 6. Echinacea. The immune-boosting label that's followed echinacea for decades is actually wrong in a way that changes how you'd use it. Echinacea purpurea and E. angustifolia don't accelerate your immune system the way a stimulant accelerates your heart rate. They modulate it, meaning they help it calibrate. That's a different action entirely, and it matters most if you have an autoimmune condition where the last thing you want is more immune activity. The active compounds, alkylamides and polysaccharides, bind to cannabinoid receptors and influence cytokine production. That's a regulating action, which is why the research shows it's most useful at symptom onset rather than as a daily supplement. E. angustifolia root carries a higher alkylamide concentration than the aerial parts of E. purpurea. Fresh root tincture should produce a mild tingle on your tongue. No tingle means low alkylamide content, and the preparation isn't worth much. Plant it now, use the leaves for the first 2 years, and harvest the root in year 3. Number 7. Calendula. Calendula officinalis shows up in medieval surgical texts, and the instructions written there still hold up against modern clinical review. Controlled studies confirm what those surgeons observed directly. Calendula extracts reduce healing time, inhibit bacterial growth, and lower inflammatory markers in wound tissue. Those are measured outcomes, not folk observations. The flowers are packed with triterpenoids and flavonoids that do specific work. The triterpenoids handle the anti-inflammatory action, the flavonoids add antimicrobial activity, and the carotenoids, the same pigments that make the petals orange and yellow, contribute to skin cell regeneration. The reason it disappeared from mainstream medicine is simple. You can't patent a flower, so the research funding went elsewhere. But the data that exists is consistent. Direct sow after last frost, harvest the flowers continuously, and infuse dried heads in a carrier oil for 4 to 6 weeks. Think of it as the emergency room in your backyard. Number 8. Thyme. Thymus vulgaris contains a compound called thymol, and thymol has been tested head-to-head against commercial cough syrup in a published clinical trial. The Thyme IV combination won, outperforming the pharmaceutical product on both cough frequency and patient-reported improvement. That's not an Herbalism Forum anecdote. That's peer-reviewed data. Thymol works 2 ways at once. It relaxes the bronchial smooth muscle to reduce the spasmodic cough reflex, and it disrupts bacterial cell membranes to address the infection driving the cough in the first place. Beyond thymol, thyme also carries carvacrol, a phenolic compound with antifungal and antiviral activity, and both compounds are volatile. So a hot thyme infusion releases them directly into the airways as steam. Thymus vulgaris thrives in poor, well-drained soil, returns reliably from zone 4 upward, and produces for years with almost no care. Harvest before flowering for peak thymol content. Number 9. Rosemary. Salvia rosmarinus has two compounds worth understanding, and most people cooking with it have no idea either one exists. Camphor opens airways and pushes oxygen delivery to the lungs. Cineole crosses the blood-brain barrier, which very few compounds can do, and studies show it correlates with measurable gains in cognitive speed and accuracy in healthy adults. That blood-brain barrier crossing is why neurology researchers are paying attention. Participants in one study worked in a room diffused with rosemary essential oil, then took cognitive tests. Memory and processing speed both improved compared to the control group. Rosmarinic acid adds another layer. It inhibits the enzyme that breaks down acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter your brain uses for memory and attention, so you're getting antioxidant protection and neurotransmitter support together. Grow Salvia rosmarinus hot and dry with excellent drainage. It'll die from wet roots long before drought kills it. Number 10. Sage. Salvia officinalis is doing two completely separate jobs in your body through two different compounds, and most people only know about one of them. The volatile oils, thujone and camphor, are potent antimicrobials that clinical trials have tested directly against the bacteria behind gum disease and bad breath. Sage mouthwash outperformed some commercial products on bacterial load reduction. That's a real result. But thujone is also a neurotoxin at high doses, so preparation method matters here more than with most plants on this list. Concentrated sage oil isn't the same thing as a tea or a culinary herb. Separately, sage contains phytoestrogens that weakly bind to estrogen receptors, which is why clinical trials show it reduces hot flash frequency and intensity during menopause. It's receptor binding, not hormone production, so the effect stays mild and self-limiting. Harvest leaves before flowering, grow it in full sun with good drainage, and it'll come back every year through Zone 4. Number 11. Lemon balm. Melissa officinalis has a specific antiviral action that most people completely miss because the plant gets lumped in with general calming herbs and left there. Rosmarinic acid and flavonoids in lemon balm have been shown in clinical studies to inhibit herpes simplex virus replication, both HSV1 and HSV2. A topical cream made from lemon balm extract was tested against cold sores in a double-blind trial, and the treatment group healed faster with fewer recurrences. The mechanism is that rosmarinic acid blocks the virus from attaching to host cells, so replication never gets started. Beyond antiviral action, lemon balm binds to GABA receptors and inhibits the enzyme that breaks down GABA, your brain's primary calming neurotransmitter. That's a real mechanism, not a pleasant taste effect. Melissa officinalis spreads aggressively, so grow it in a container. Harvest leaves just before flowering for peak rosmarinic acid content. Number 12. Comfrey. Symphytum officinale earned the name knitbone over centuries of use, and modern studies on allantoin, the plant's primary active compound, confirm the mechanism those practitioners were observing. Allantoin directly stimulates cell proliferation and speeds up repair in connective tissue, cartilage, and bone. That's not folk memory. That's documented cell biology. Now, comfrey also contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids, which can damage the liver when taken internally over time. Most sources collapse this into a blanket warning and stop there, but the distinction matters. Alkaloid concentration is highest in the root and much lower in the leaves, so topical leaf preparations carry a very different risk profile than drinking root tea. For external use, the clinical evidence is strong. A study on blunt musculoskeletal injuries found comfrey root extract gel reduced pain and swelling faster than placebo, with allantoin driving cell division and rosmarinic acid adding anti-inflammatory support underneath it. Number 13. Yarrow. Achillea millefolium is named after Achilles, and while the legend may be embellished, the chemistry behind it isn't. Yarrow contains sesquiterpene lactones that promote clotting and reduce bleeding time when applied directly to a wound. Medieval soldiers carried it into battle for exactly that reason, and modern analysis confirms what they already knew from experience. What's interesting is that the same plant does the opposite thing internally. A hot yarrow tea promotes sweating by dilating peripheral blood vessels, which helps the body shed heat during a fever. Topically, it stops bleeding. Internally, it opens you up. Two completely different mechanisms from one plant, and knowing which you need determines how you use it. Yarrow also carries apigenin and luteolin, flavonoids that add anti-inflammatory and antispasmodic activity, making it genuinely useful for menstrual cramps where you need both effects at once. One important note: avoid it during pregnancy, as it has uterine-stimulating activity. Number 14. Fennel. Feniculum vulgare contains anethole, a compound with documented smooth muscle-relaxing effects in the GI tract, which is why fennel tea reliably cuts bloating and intestinal cramping. It's not a vague digestive herb. It's a specific antispasmodic with a specific molecular target. Anethole also binds weakly to estrogen receptors, giving fennel a documented role in managing menstrual discomfort and, traditionally, supporting milk production in nursing mothers. That estrogenic activity is mild, but it's real enough that high-dose fennel supplements are contraindicated in estrogen-sensitive conditions. The seeds carry the highest anethole concentration, though fresh fronds and bulb deliver enough volatile oil to produce measurable effects at culinary doses. Quercetin and kaempferol, two flavonoids in fennel, add anti-inflammatory and antioxidant activity beyond the gut. One practical note: fennel is allelopathic, meaning it releases compounds that suppress nearby plants, so keep it away from your vegetables and give it its own dedicated space. Number 15. Dandelion. Taraxacum officinale is the most aggressively eradicated plant in suburban America, and homeowners pay good money every year to kill something that's doing real pharmacological work in their soil. The leaves are a genuine diuretic, and here's where it gets interesting. Most pharmaceutical diuretics flush potassium out of your body, which is why doctors tell patients to eat bananas when they prescribe them. Dandelion leaf provides potassium as it promotes fluid excretion, so the mineral loss self-compensates. That's a more elegant profile than the drug it's being compared to. The root, roasted and brewed like coffee, delivers taraxacin, a bitter compound that increases bile flow and supports the liver's fat digestion and detox processes, along with inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria directly. You don't need to plant it. You need to stop killing it. Harvest young leaves in spring, roots in fall after the first frost when inulin concentration peaks. Number 16. Nettle. Urtica dioica delivers iron, calcium, and magnesium at concentrations that compete directly with supplement bottles, but the difference is bioavailability. Minerals in a whole plant come packaged with cofactors that help your body actually absorb them, which synthetic mineral supplements bound to carriers don't replicate well. The stinging hairs contain histamine and formic acid, and those same compounds, applied intentionally to an arthritic joint, trigger a localized inflammatory response that clinical evidence shows can reduce the chronic inflammation underneath. It's counterintuitive, but the mechanism holds up. The root is a completely different medicine from the leaf. Root compounds bind to sex hormone-binding globulin, which controls how much testosterone and estrogen circulates freely in your blood, and nettle root has been studied specifically for benign prostatic hyperplasia with real results on urinary flow. Wear gloves when harvesting, blanch or dry the leaves to kill the sting, and harvest young spring growth for peak mineral content. Number 17. Holy basil, Tulsi. Adaptogen gets thrown around so loosely in wellness marketing that it's almost lost meaning. Ocimum tenuiflorum Tulsi actually earns the label because the research behind it is specific and measurable in a way most stress herbs aren't. The active compounds, eugenol, rosmarinic acid, and a group called ocimumicides, have been shown in human studies to lower cortisol levels, reduce blood glucose spikes under stress, and improve cognitive function in chronically stressed subjects. That's hormonal modulation at the adrenal level, not just a calming drink. Ayurvedic practitioners used tulsi for over 3,000 years for respiratory infections, stress, and metabolic support, and modern research keeps validating all three of those applications with actual mechanistic data. Grow it as a warm season annual in full sun with well-drained soil. Bring containers inside before frost, and harvest leaves before flowering for peak eugenol content. Number 18, oregano. Oreganum vulgare contains carvacrol and thymol at concentrations that have been tested against antibiotic-resistant bacteria in lab settings, and the results aren't subtle. Carvacrol works by integrating into bacterial cell membranes and causing ion leakage, which kills the cell. Because it attacks the physical membrane rather than a metabolic pathway, bacteria can't develop resistance to it the way they do with conventional antibiotics. Now, lab results don't always translate to clinical outcomes, and that's worth saying plainly. Oregano oil isn't a replacement for antibiotics in a serious systemic infection. But for topical infections, upper respiratory illness, and gut pathogen load, the in vitro data justifies using it as a first-line response. Carvacrol also works against Candida species, so it's genuinely useful for fungal infections too. Grow Greek or Turkish varieties in poor alkaline soil with full sun, harvest before flowering, and you'll get the highest carvacrol concentration the plant can produce. Number 19. Parsley. Petroselinum crispum is the plant that gets pushed to the edge of the plate and left there, and that habit wastes a serious amount of pharmacological activity. The leaves contain apial and myristicin, volatile compounds with documented diuretic activity, so parsley actively supports kidney function by increasing urine flow and reducing the mineral concentration that leads to stone formation. It's also one of the highest dietary sources of vitamin K, which your blood and bones both depend on directly. Now, apiol is potent enough that high-dose parsley preparations have a documented history as an emmenagogue, stimulating menstrual flow, which is why it's contraindicated in pregnancy in large amounts. Culinary use is safe. Concentrated seed oil is a different product entirely. Dose is where food becomes medicine. Flat-leaf Italian varieties carry more volatile oil than curly types, and fresh parsley delivers far more apial and vitamin K than dried. Number 20, ginger. Zingiber officinal targets two inflammatory enzymes at once, COX2 and 5-LOX, and most pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories only block one of those pathways. That broader coverage is why ginger shows up in clinical trials for conditions as different as joint pain, cardiovascular inflammation, and nausea. Fresh ginger and dried ginger aren't the same medicine. Fresh rhizome runs high in gingerols, which work best on nausea and digestion. Drying converts gingerols into shoggols, which drive systemic anti-inflammatory and circulatory effects. The preparation you choose should match what you're actually trying to address. For nausea specifically, ginger compounds work on the same serotonin receptors in the gut that expensive pharmaceutical antiemetics target, and several obstetric guidelines recommend it for pregnancy-related nausea. Plant a fresh grocery store rhizome in spring, keep it warm and moist, and one rhizome produces several new ones by fall. Your supply grows itself. 20 plants, 20 specific compounds, 20 documented mechanisms. What you've just seen isn't a wellness list. It's a pharmacological map of what a garden can actually do. The shift worth making isn't from pills to plants. It's from passive consumption to active understanding. When you know that thymol disrupts bacterial membranes, that apigenin binds to GABA receptors, that carvacrol sidesteps resistance pathways, you're working from mechanism, not marketing. Start with one plant. Learn its compounds. Grow it well, then add another. Save this to your reference playlist for next planting season, because that knowledge doesn't expire the way pills do.